Thanks everybody for joining this webinar. We're going to be talking about how to transition from once a year tax projects to outsourced financial controllership. And so I'd really like to thank Tyler for this opportunity. We work a lot together. And so for us to be able to bring this to you, I'm really excited about this. So that all said, let's get rolling here. The agenda today will be covering over why you should be offering outsourced financial controllership services. We'll be kind of going through a 3-step plan, taking you from once a year tax engagements to what we would call fully outsourced controllership. And we'll talk about how you can actually streamline those services using tools like Helm and Veem. And then we'll go through a Q&A session. So with that in mind, we'll do a little bit of an intro with myself and Tyler. I'm Kelvin Geek. I run 2080 Financial Services, which is a consulting firm here in Calgary, Canada. We specialize in fractional controllership and fractional CFO services. I'm also co-founder of a cash flow forecasting app called Helm. And the reason that we built the app is because we deal with fractional controllership services and we needed a tool that would help us do it quicker, better, and faster. And so I'll quickly throw it over to Tyler before we continue on here.
Thank you, Kelvin. Appreciate that, and thank you all for joining us here today. I know it's a busy season, so I appreciate all you guys coming out. And like I said, so my name here is Tyler Hickman. I'm the team lead on our accounting channel here at Veem. And for those of you that don't know who Veem is, it's essentially an all-in-one AP and AR tool for SMBs in North America as well as across the world. But we'll get into that a little bit more closer to the end. And really, I work here working with lots of bookkeepers, accountants to kind of work on process improvements and a lot of different things. But anyways, I'll touch on that a little bit further on in the presentation. I'll pass it back over to you, Kelvin.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. I also need to say that I love your T-shirt as a side. It's an amazing T-shirt.
Now, I feel it's also relevant, of course, for the timing. We launched these at Scaling New Heights last year, and they went off with a bang. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to get one, but I figured it was a good one to wear for today.
I think you'll probably get a few requests from people asking for one, probably. All right. All joking aside, let's get started. Why should you offer outsourced financial controllership services? First things first. Really diving into it, the average bank buffer for businesses in the United States pre-COVID was 27 days. This is from a JP Morgan study that was done back in 2016. And what that means is cash in till for banks. So if all revenues disappeared for a business, how long would they have to live? Pre-COVID, it was 27 days. I haven't seen a study like this since COVID, but I would be hard pressed to believe that it's any better than 27 days. So of course, why do you want to be offering outsourced controllership services? Proper cash management and payables management is core to managing that kind of a situation. It's a key component of financial management, and that's why big companies have controllers. That said, controllers cost a lot of money to have in-house. Smaller businesses simply can't afford to have that same in-house power that the big businesses do, and that's where you, trusted professionals to your clients, can help provide that service to them through fractional controllership services. So not only does that provide the support your client's needs, but it also represents an opportunity for you to escape, quote unquote, the grind that we hear quite often from our clients, and even working in industry myself. Compliance and tax work is a lot. It's a lot of hard work, and we're just saying that there's other revenue streams that you can follow. There's other things that you can do with your clients that they truly value. In doing so, you can earn more revenue per client because you'll be adding services onto them, and you'll probably have higher margins per client once these services and systems and processes are in place, because you're combining services, you're gaining efficiencies, and sometimes advisory work is actually higher margin than tax work. Depends on, if we're actually what we're comparing. Generally speaking, using advisory services, you can generate higher and more consistent monthly recurring revenue, which means better cash flow for yourself, which is definitely a positive thing. And one of the often kind of missed aspects of providing advisory services, and in this case, fractional controllership services, you become indispensable to your clients. So not only are you going to be providing tax services now, but you'll be helping them truly run their business. And that means you are much less commoditized, but it also means that you are much more value to your client. You're actually truly helping them run their business. You're building the relationship. You're a true financial partner. You truly can't quantify what that means to your client. It's a huge, huge win for everybody. So before we dig in too far, I think it's really good to define controllership versus CFO services. As everybody on this webinar probably knows, CFO services tend to be a lot more strategic and long-term in nature. So think about complex custom Excel financial models, spreadsheet financial models, helping clients with financing and equity needs, strategic business planning. Those would be CFO services. Controllership services tend to be short or medium term in nature for basically now till the next 12 months in time frame. And it really centers around monitoring receivables and customer trends, managing payables and line of credits, and supporting month-end closes, tasks like that. Those would be controllership services. So small businesses, who are the largest business segment by far, true small businesses comprise about 80% of the market. These businesses need controllership services more than they actually do true CFO services. They are all much more focused on near-term aims. So what do I need to do in the next 12 months to achieve my aims? You know, they do think about the strategic services for sure. They've got their 3-year plans, their big, hairy, audacious goals that they want to meet. But the reality is they're more living in the now than they are 5 years from now, which means controllership services are actually more in demand. And so to be clear here, that's what we're talking about, true controllership services. But we do want to be careful there, because sometimes you'll see practitioners out there marketing themselves as fractional CFOs, but what they're doing is controllership services. And the reason for that is because most small businesses don't actually know what a controller is. That's more of a technical accounting term. So, you know, marketing tidbit there for everybody. If you want to start advertising yourself as a fractional CFO, I actually don't believe there's anything wrong with that if you're providing controllership services, because it does resonate with people a little bit more than a fractional controller.
All right, that brings us to our first poll. I'm sorry, go for it, Kelvin.
No, I was waiting for you to jump in. I jumped the gun there, sorry.
No, all good. We're all on the same page. We just want to make sure we get these polls out to our attendees. And that first one has been launched live for everyone to respond to now. This question asks, are you currently offering cash flow forecasting services? Please choose from one of the 3 options on screen. To select your answer, you're going to choose the radio button that corresponds to your answer, and then click the submit button to register your response. We'll leave this poll open for another 30 seconds or so.
We'll jump in here in the dead air for a second as well, that if anyone has any questions as well at any point, if you guys can plug those into that questions bar, and gives us also an opportunity to address those, either myself or Kelvin during these open opportunities as well. So feel free.
All right, and if you guys run into any issues with the polls, refresh your screen. It should come up for you if it hasn't already. We'll go ahead and close down this first poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll share those results on screen. The largest proportion of responses, 45%, are going to no. Back to you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Jasmine. That poll actually goes in line with a lot of other ones that we do, so not really surprising. Typically what we find is a lot of practitioners want to get into this space. They know their clients want it or need it, and it's just simply a question of moving on and trying to start doing it. So, you know, that's the whole point of this webinar. So good lead in to what we're talking about. How do you move from going from once per year tax engagements to a fractional controllership role? Here's our 3-step roadmap. And it starts with the once a year tax work, obviously, moves into what I call ongoing tax planning. And I just want to be clear there, that doesn't mean that you're doing full tax projects, once per month. It's more of regular meetups with clients just to see where they're going and what you might be able to do with them in a proactive sense, as opposed to doing it after the fact. That then can be parlayed into recurring cash flow forecasting. It ties nicely in with those meeting points, the touch points that you're having during ongoing tax planning, which then, as the client grows or as you see fit, you can move that into a outsourced fractional controllership role. So those are the steps that we're going to be walking through, and let's get going on that. So step one with ongoing tax planning. Annual tax engagements are often completed after the business year end occurs, and that typically means that there's sometimes missed opportunities that could be planned during the actual year as they occur. So a great first step towards ongoing fractional controllership is to provide ongoing tax planning support as the year actually progresses. So this can be simple monthly or quarterly touch points where you have meetings with your client. You review their financial picture, review their future operations, their business plans, their goals, and you assess if there could be anything that you could do or put in place prior to the year end. So while it's more involved than traditional tax preparation, where you just collect all the documentation and process, there's a lot more value being provided to the client and a lot more engagement and relationship building is occurring. And that means that greater fees not only can be charged, but should be charged and are probably being expected by your client. So again, I'm up here in Canada, Calgary, Canada, and using local examples here, typical practitioners charge anywhere between $750 to $1,250 for year-end returns for small businesses. But what we find is once they move to ongoing tax planning engagements, monthly fixed fee prices, it's not uncommon to see prices of $150 to $250 per month, which is basically doubling that charge. So you're moving up to around $2,000 per year on tax returns. So even though the price has doubled, the effort actually hasn't doubled. Again, you're only having meetings with these people. You're not actually going through full engagements or anything like that. You're simply talking to them, engaging with them, communicating with them to see if there's anything that could be done. And so your effort's probably only about 50% greater, even though your revenues have doubled. So lots of opportunity there to make more money, and that probably sounds terrible, but the reality is that you're actually providing a better service for your clients, something that they desire. It's proactive tax planning.
Kelvin,
so having
sorry, I just wanted to actually jump in and maybe just kind of take another step. Like how do those conversations go from your experience, like from the client's perspective? Like, are they usually receptive to that, or what's the feedback usually from them?
Yeah, 100%. From our perspective, we're continually engaged in fractional controllership, fractional CFO type services. So it's a great question to ask, because those meetings are kind of normal for us. But typically we find that the reason people come to us are that they're getting just the bare minimum from their existing practitioners, and they want more. They want somebody that will sit down and talk with them and say, hey, are you buying any trucks in the next 6 months? What are your business goals? How are you going to grow? Because if you are growing in a certain way or buying certain equipment or spending money on certain things, are there things that we could do from a tax perspective to help save you tax dollars or optimize things more proactively? We typically find that clients want to have those discussions. They're not opposed to it at all. And so once you provide that to them, they're very receptive to what I would say the price change would be, because they're getting a completely different service. Even though it's just simply talking, it is viewed as a completely different service from the client's perspective, because they're getting that proactive advice as opposed to the reactive advice. And that simple shift in mindset is actually quite valuable from the client's perspective, we found. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. Love the context on that.
Yeah. So if you have that proactive, ongoing tax planning process in place, it's really easy to progress that into cash flow forecasting services. And the reason for that is because you're meeting with your client on an ongoing basis, you're discussing their future plans, their future business operations, and it's a natural extension for them, your client, to physically want financial models around those future plans and ideas. It would help them get assurance around the fact that their future course is actually feasible given and reasonable given their current financial position. And so it's really a nice, easy, small, natural step to go from tax services once per year to ongoing touch points. Again, quarterly is even a great starting point, to then financial modeling out the decision-making process for the client. Again, back to your point, Tyler, they're very receptive to that. It's what they want. They truly want financial partners to help them manage their business, and it's highly in demand. So one thing to talk about here is that tax season actually is a great opportunity to propose this service to existing clients, as they're highly engaged with you already. They're talking to you quite a bit right now. And you should have, I know that's not always the case, but for a number of your clients, you should have a lot of clean and up-to-date data to start with. And that's really important with forecasting because, again, garbage in, garbage out. If the data quality is bad, you're not going to have a good forecasting experience. Your client also is likely in the mindset of planning for the future right now during tax season. Even if it's subconscious, they're looking at their financials a lot more, working with you. And so they're thinking about their financial position as a business person, much more so than they normally are. Talking about fees for cash flow forecasting, that's a question that we get a lot. It's quite affordable for your clients given the value that they get, as well as rewarding for you from an economic standpoint. Again, keep in mind that if you're doing the progression that we're talking about, the 3 steps, you're having regular meetings with your client already. It's really just fact-finding, discovery conversations, relationship building. But that information that you're gaining is exactly what you need to put into a forecast, because you're talking about their future life and where they're going and want to do. So they're already paying for the input of your forecast. So if you're using automated tools, you can actually get your effort to a pretty good point where it's probably less work than you're going to do on the actual tax planning side of things. And the client fees, looking at the other side of the equation, could be similar to what you're charging, if not higher, depending on how you're pricing and how you want to strategically do that. But the value being provided to the client is about the same, if not more, because again, you're actively managing and progressing their success. Their perceived value is quite high. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, going back to our tax planning example, you're probably doubling your fees with, not the same increase in effort. You would probably look to have around the same metrics here, where you're earning, say, $200 a month for a smaller engagement and the same amount of effort, so if not less. So your margins should actually be higher than they are on the tax planning side. And again, incremental steps, incremental changes to the client side in terms of pricing, but really big steps in terms of the value. So the value equation is really there. And with that, I'll switch it over to Jasmine.
All right, I'll take you guys to poll number 2 now. If you can hear my voice, I'm launching poll number 2. This question asks, are you currently offering accounts payable as a service? You guys know what to do. Click the radio button that corresponds to your answer and be sure to click submit. Leave this open for another 45 seconds. Wow, thank you all for voting so quickly. Got over 90% of our responses in. Go ahead and vote now for poll number 2. I'll be closing it down soon in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Sharing those results on screen. We had 25% respond yes, 44% no, and 31% not applicable. Back to you.
Just want to jump in there actually for a quick second on that one. For any of the folks that are not applicable, I'm sure there's going to be some roles in here that may be, that isn't quite part of the the job description or what your individual role might be. For any of other folks where it could be part of it, would love to kind of see if there's any comments you guys or specific reasons as to why it's not applicable kind of within there with such a large folks. So that would be of course helpful for us.
All right. So we talked about moving from ongoing tax planning to cash flow forecasting services. Those actually transition extremely nicely into what we call outsourced or fractional controllership services. In providing fractional controllership services, we touched on it kind of at the start. You're essentially ensuring that there's enough cash in the till for your client at all times. So you're monitoring accounts receivable and incoming deposits, and you're monitoring accounts payable and outgoing spending for a large part of your role. And so really, when you think about it, this is just a much more actively involved version of cash flow forecasting, which is why we often refer to it as cash management. This becomes more important as a client grows in size, because this portion of their business can become quite burdensome and stressful to them. And because you are already providing tax and forecasting services to them, likely on an ongoing basis at this point, you can naturally take over this burden by being more actively involved with what you're doing. Keep in mind that when we talk about the word burden here, we're actually speaking from the position of the business owner. Finances are not that strong suit. That's why they hired you. So what is stressful and burdensome to them is just part of the typical day for you. In fact, myself, I actually quite like that kind of stuff. Point here is that it won't be burdensome for you. So I just want to use that term a little loosely. And because we're talking about taking over a true controllership function within your client's business, like becoming actively more so involved with it, the fees are going to be higher on an ongoing basis. So again, looking at typical local examples here, most fractional controllership positions start at $1,000 to $1,500 per month, and they can quickly grow to be multiples of that. And the reason that the fees can get so high is because these services are geared for larger or growing small businesses. These businesses typically have multiple employees, their spending's growing, and is likely at $500,000 or much more and growing. So the competition for these fees are actually the real cost of these businesses hiring full-time staff members, if not one person, even multiple people. So when you're looking from the client's perspective, the cost of hiring one person, even a controller level person here in Canada, would be anywhere between $80,000 to $120,000, and that's without including benefits, insurance, training, management, vacations, all of that kind of stuff. So once you consider those parameters from a client's perspective, the cost of in-house controllership becomes quite prohibitive. And so, that presents a really good opportunity for someone like yourself that's already providing recurring, ongoing tax planning, tax advice, as well as forecasting services. It's just a question of if you want to become a little more involved and put a little more time into your clients' businesses. So what do clients actually get from controllership services? Well, it kind of ties back to our 27 days cash buffer that we were talking about at the outset. I'll throw out a few other stats for you. I love these stats. We talk about them all the time here at Helm. 80% of all businesses fail over 10 years. It's a pretty grim stat. Most of you have probably heard that. Some of the ones that you probably haven't heard, though, is that 60% of business failures are actually profitable, which is pretty scary. It goes to show that cash management is a real core issue for businesses out there. People do need help with it. Even if you're profitable and growing, you can still run into cash flow problems. 70% of all business owners stress out about cash flow at some point. So again, it just goes to show how pervasive it is for all businesses out there. And that's just the simple reality. If you look back at the 27 days of cash buffer, the reality is that most small businesses out there, again, 80% of that business market runs very lean as they start and as they grow. They're just in a constant state of stress. And so controllership services solve and speak directly to this pain. Implementing these services, planning and execution of those plans, you can help your client build out cash plans where you can build up that cash buffer. You can get it up to 90 days or more, you know, a position where things can go sideways, COVID can happen, and they're still okay. You can help them streamline their sales and collections process, as well as the payables and expense processes. That helps with their cash conversion cycle, which means they get paid faster, their cash flow improves. As you work through the controllership process, you can improve their working capital, which helps their short-term loan covenants. And of course, you can reduce some of the workload that they do, the actual client, in terms of taking over things like bill payments. You know, that's why we team up with Veem. It speaks directly to that. It is a core function of controllership services. And so the end benefit of the client is that you basically improve the general foundation of the business itself. So not only are you taking their stress away, but you're taking it away because you're improving that core cash position of that company. And as you improve that cash position and take that severe stress away from them, you'll become indispensable. We spoke to that at the beginning. That's how you become an indispensable piece of their company. And again, you can't really put a value on that from a client's perspective. If you can help them attain any of those targets using cash flow forecasting, cash management, bill payment management, you will become a core cog within their business structure. So how do you streamline your cash flow forecasting and controllership services? You know, you can use tools like Helm and Veem. So speaking about Helm specifically, again, I spoke to it right at the start. We built Helm because we play in that fractional controllership, fractional CFO space, and we really needed a tool that could help us do it at scale, quickly and efficiently, and something that would also be easily understood by our clients. So we built a system that automatically creates forecasts from your accounting data. It'll plug into QuickBooks and Xero, pull the accounting data for you, and it'll actually set up and maintain the forecast for you as the accounting data is updated. It's very intuitive, it's very visual, it's built quite differently from other tools out there. And the reason that was done is because communicating with your client continually is a core aspect of controllership services. So having them understand it is a key aspect of an indispensable tool. Spreadsheets are great, but most small business owners don't actually understand them. So having a tool that helps you describe the situation and the decision-making process is really beneficial. That's why we also allow unlimited scenarios. You can test out different ideas, different concepts, different pivots, whatever you want to call them, very quickly and easily within the system. And so it really eliminates a lot of the back and forth and issues in communication flow when it comes to outsourced controllership issues. And of course, one of our key unique selling points is our integrations. And one of those integrations happens to be with Veem, which allows us to actually automate the payables process with your clients. So not only can you go and create a cash plan and a cash flow forecast, but you can actually execute that plan right within the system with really cool integrations like the one with Veem. So set up an AP run plan, client approves it with you. You click a button, it pushes it into Veem, and Veem does their magic from there. It's a really, really, really handy integration. Not only do we have the app itself, but we also have a lot of education because we do fully appreciate there's a lot of people out there that aren't sure how to get started in this. They don't know where to turn, and they would like a little more support or education behind them to know that they're doing things the best way possible or with best practices in mind. And it's a core pillar of our company, education and support. So we've got two really great programs out there that people can sign up for. We've got the Build Your Successful Cash Flow Forecasting course. That's a self-paced online program where it takes you through all the steps and everything you need to think about to design a cash flow forecasting service within your firm and for your clients. For people that want a little more active involvement and active coaching, we have what we call the Cash Flow Advisory Accelerator Program. And with that, you just gain one-on-one coaching and training and support in conjunction with the core education piece. And with that, I'll throw it back to Jasmine for another poll.
All right, sounds good. Here comes our third poll. What accounting software do you or your clients use for AP? There are 5 options to choose from. If your answer is other, Please feel free to drop that in the questions box, or if it's not applicable, let us know why by dropping a message in the questions box. We did have a question from Felicia. She'd like to know, is this compatible with Accounting Suite?
Helm is not compatible with Accounting Suite, unfortunately.
All right, thanks for that insight. We'll give this poll another 20 seconds. See, Ryan uses bill.com. I also see Shelby next for AP. All right, I'll go ahead and shut down this third poll in 3, 2, 1. And 45% of our audience either uses QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop. And you can see the remaining results on screen. Back to you.
All right, from here, I'll actually throw it over to Tyler and he can tell me when to shift the slides.
Yeah, that's perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Kelvin, for walking through that, and thank you all for kind of going through a lot of that information, answering those polls. They're helpful. We appreciate it. So like I said, I'm from Veem. For those of you that don't know who Veem is, like I said, that's kind of top of the hour. We are an all-in-one AP and AR company for small businesses in particular. We really work well with a business size that is right from kind of starting off, startup stage. This is, day one sort of thing, all the way up to organizations that have about $10 to $15 million worth of sales in a year, and the payables receivables that go along with that. There are some specific use cases on an international perspective, but for the most part, that's where we work. And really, things have changed quite a lot over the last couple of years for us. And really in the industry, right? Like there was a pretty big shift, and Kelvin talked about some of this before in the past as well, as a lot of you experienced, where things have really went cloud-based with a lot of technologies, right? So there's a lot more focus on businesses, and there's this really growing kind of desire and need within the industry overall to see where we can expand. Can we offer that fractional CFO? Can we look at controllership? Are there other areas where as a firm we can really be more sticky to our customer sets? And how do we do that in a way that can create standard processes for our team, can really drive client value overall, and really, like you said, continue to become more of that foundation piece of that key and trusted advisor with the clients that you guys are working with. And one of the core components to that, of course, is that expertise, right? It's got to be there. But the other half is how can we utilize technology in different ways to push that value from that aspect. So it's a really key component of that. There's a lot of technologies out there. Again, I'm sure a lot of you, in particular on the QuickBooks side, I've seen kind of a massive push off of desktop type programs, right, into QBO as an example. On the QBO side of things, the possibilities from an integration automation standpoints have almost become endless, so to speak, because there's so many different services and providers like Veem, among many others out there. So the big component of that is, utilizing technologies, utilizing cloud component technologies in a way that adds value, and you can offer different services, but you're not really creating more work internally. We're able to utilize technology in a way that it's able to do a lot of that kind of manual work that we might have previously been able to do before. We're able to standardize a process, hopefully over all of your clients, and not have kind of subset of, well, with this client we have this process, and this client we have this process. We have third client that's a completely different process, because ultimately that's going to end up costing you guys time, resources on your team, and ultimately essentially kind of restrain the number of clients that you can offer this for. So from Veem's perspective on that side of it, from us, we integrate with a number of different softwares. We've got direct integrations with QuickBooks Online, with Xero, but also tools like Helm in particular. Helm has been a great partner of ours, and one in particular that, as you've kind of seen here, adds that tool component to an issue that people are facing every day. We talk a lot about the similar topics, you know, the cash flow management, and there's a lot of, like Kelvin said, a lot of profitable businesses out there that unfortunately, you know, have some of that up and down that roller coaster look like, and if they don't have the cash when they need it, they run into issues. But the important part of that is making sure that these technologies all talk together, right? You don't want to have to be duplicating work. So the ability for you to use a tool like Helm as an example to execute bill pay on that side really cuts out an entire process and connects everything. So a lot of folks in particular, even across North America, Canada, and the US, their accounting system from their payment system or other tools are always disconnected, right? You've got your processes within, you know, a tool like QuickBooks Online or others, or even desktop, and then you've got your online banking, or you've got your manual check process, or whatever that might be, you know. And for the most part, there's never any communication talking together. So if you can have systems that all talk to each other and share the same data, it really helps, again, to create that standard process. So what does that look like? I mean, you guys can see up here on the screen, you know, we're talking about time. I know you know, people always talk about saving time, but this can really have impact ultimately at the end of the day here. You know, we're not going to be going over doing multiple mundane tasks over and over again. Through those integrations that truly do work and add value from that side, we're able to cut out a lot of that, save money. You know, I won't dig into a whole lot of this, but on the actual side of it, at least here from Veem, domestic transactions, as you guys can see on there, Canada and the US are actually free transactions, ACH and checks as well. So there's actually no cost to send those transactions through there. You know, banks make a lot of money outside of mortgages. Banks, their number 2 revenue lines are on business accounts for foreign exchange and other, you know, check processing, ACH processing. They make a ton of money on you know, SMBs in North America. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, ACH really, you know, shouldn't cost that much. It's a fairly inexpensive tool, not only for the banks and as well as its customers, but it's one that should not cost what it does. So Veem offers that for free, and you know, from that aspect to your small businesses, can again just add some more of that value from a dollar and cost perspective every month. And headaches, you know, one of those things, again, we talked about integrated systems to remove that kind of human component of error, you know, that miskey on the account information, your double entries on things, having to duplicate processes with different technologies. We need that all to talk together and go through. The other component, it's not listed here, but I'll talk about here as well, is on the service component of things, right? It's an area that is kind of forgotten about from time to time within the industry, and not all of the tools out there are great. Customer service is a big thing. It's one of our core pillars here at Veem in particular. I know it is as well with the folks over at Helm and Kelvin. We really want to have a great customer experiences. We want them to, you know, if you refer a technology like Helm, Veem as an example, we want to make sure that makes you look great for your customer. So we spend a lot of time. We got a whole team actually on our accounting channel here at Veem to deal with that, and a full service client support system. So it's a 24/7, either phone, online chat, email. They'll jump on a video call with you, essentially whatever you need. So it really kind of goes over and above, because there's a lot of other tech companies out there in particular that might offer like a chat only from 9 to 5 Eastern, and unfortunately it doesn't hit the grade for a lot of folks, as well as, you know, banks aren't always perfect. I'm sure we've all lost a couple hours on hold with a bank at one time or not. So we can go ahead and move into the next slide there, Kelvin. So payment methods. So this is an area that we have heard, you know, a lot of feedback over, and it's a part that people have a lot of interest and really concern on. And what I mean by that is, when you look at bringing on a new tool such as Veem or Bill.com, Melio, Corpay, Pluto, I mean, there's so many of them out there, even including looking at a bank. There's typically restrictions. It's like, okay, well, this tool can only do this, and this tool can only do ACH, or this can only do certain things. You know, maybe they're focused on wallets, maybe they don't offer card support. Whatever that kind of looks like, that's always one of the blockers that we always talk about. I want a system for not only for my firm, but as well for my clients, of which when I integrate and I onboard with them, they're able to execute all payment types. We're able to essentially bring on one business that's able to do all of my APR needs if I want them to, and being able to house that all in one. And that's really what we'd be focused on here. And you can kind of see that up here on the screen. We want to be able to be that one stop shop for the SMBs. So we offer, ACH in the US, EFTs in Canada, checks in the US, credit cards, debit cards, international wires, wallets, essentially whatever type of payable method needs to be executed for that business, we're able to do that, and able to do that effectively. So, this actually, a lot of it ties into the vendor experience, right? So one of the common kind of pieces, and it's always a tie-up for not only the clients but as well the firms. What does that vendor experience look like? What does it look like from their perspective? And that's why offering all of these are so important, because it gives you that ability to essentially pay them however they want to be paid. I can stand up here and say that most of our payables all the time are an ACH or EFT, which we would love, right? I mean, we want everyone on ACH, EFTs all the time. They're far superior, of course, in our minds, but paper checks is still a big part of it. They've been around since the Roman Empire, but it's an area that a lot of businesses are still kind of stuck to, and it's a standard way to get paid. So we definitely still want to be able to offer that. So it's been a big ask from our side on that side of it. But we can roll over into the next slide, Kelvin, on the receivables. And this is actually a part that we're focused on from a company overall a lot here as well. And the main reason is that there's a lot of companies out there that focus and do a lot of work on the AP side of things. And to be quite honest with you, AP is easy, right? There's 100 companies you could Google right now that all do AP. AR is a little bit tougher, right? It's a little bit more difficult. You need some input from your clients. And quite often, you actually need to offer a lot of different ways for your clients to pay you for it to be really a successful process overall, especially if you've got some larger customers that aren't, kind of willing to go down one path you might offer. But quite often that comes with additional expenses. I might be willing to offer a number of different payment options, but that might, mean I have to utilize different technologies or offer different other programs, and those might have some monthly recurring costs or per transaction costs. So typically, it ends up just going, well, send me a check, or here's my e-transfer, or here are my ACH details. But using a tool like Veem, and we keep this in mind as we build this out, is that we want to essentially offer through Veem a number of different ways. You guys can kind of see them here on the screen for them to be able to essentially pay you and have that work in an integrated fashion to go through. So, powerful thing, an invoice that's created in QuickBooks Online can get automatically sent through Veem and out to your customer. They can pay it by creating an account on Veem if they want. They don't have to create an account. They could use our guest pay. They could pay by card, ACH, bank account, whatever they want to do. They could use a pay link that's on your invoice attached to the bottom on there as well, that you maybe send out via email address instead. So there's a lot of different ways they can do that. But one of the most powerful aspects to this, and this is where we add a little bit more meat and potatoes, is the system's got automatic reminders that get sent out. You have that ability to track your payment, which is huge. This is a tool that you don't often see with a lot of other tech out there, but you can see if someone's opened that invoice, if they've accepted it, if they've initiated a payment, and it essentially actually tracks your payment just like it would with a package you order off Amazon. It'll tell you ETA exactly when it's going to hit your account. All immensely powerful information that we typically haven't had before. You send out an invoice in the mail. You don't know when they get it. You don't know when they've opened it. You don't know when they've cut that check, signed it and put it back in the mail. You give them a call or send them an email and you get the typical checks in the mail situation, right? And that ties in heavily back to what, Kelvin was talking about at the beginning of those days of, we're depending on that cash to come in. We're depending on that necessary cash flow because I got a vendor to pay and I need this money to be able to do that. So adding that additional layer and that data component can really help also manage those to be able to have an understanding of where everyone is in that payables pipeline. So I think this is
And
actually going
I'll
to
just,
pull us.
I'll
Sorry,
just
go
chime
ahead,
in on
Kelvin.
that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
know we're short of time, but I also know from being a professional user myself, I actually really like the security of Veem as well. Just because your team actually verifies, know your client rules, you do fraud checks. Like in my opinion, it's a much more robust security system than other tools out there. But that's just me.
Yeah, it is great to hear that. I mean, it's an area again that's a little bit kind of undersold, because typically banks just operate from one half of the transaction, right? They only really care about you, and whatever's getting sent out or received, it doesn't really matter because that's on the other bank. Veem really works really hard to we like to call ourselves the most secure payments network in North America. We have a full know your customer KYC process on everyone, and fraud, on the internet, things are getting scary sometimes, and we only continue to raise our bars to make sure everyone's money is going where it needs to the right account. So it's an area that we focused on, and actually I'll address a couple of questions in here as well, as I noticed popped up. Veem can handle monthly subscription payments from customers. So this is actually a brand new feature I just want to drop in here actually on the receivables. So we have the ability to build in what we call PAD, or pre-authorized debit agreements. This just dropped like literally 3 or 4 days ago at the end of last week. So you can actually invoice your customer through Veem, David, and they can agree to an agreed upon schedule. So maybe it's a $500 bill at the first of every month that's due. They can agree to that to come off their credit card or their debit card or their bank account, whatever it is, and that'll actually automatically in the back end kind of run. They just have to authorize it once, and you'll just see those funds coming in for maybe it's a 12-month schedule or 24-month schedule. Of course, those can get changed at any point, but yeah, that's actually just brand new in the product here as well. And just moving along here for the sake of time as well, I think we can roll into the last polling question. And before I hop this over to Jasmine to read out, we're always looking to have conversations. If anyone ever has questions for Kelvin or myself here, or both of us, feel free, let us know. We'll reach out either email or phone call with you guys, and can work through any specific use cases you guys might have. And to add along with that, we'll throw in $100 to make it worth your time. We're looking to get some feedback on whatnot. So let us know in here as well. I know I kind of stole half your job there, Jasmine, but I'll let you.
No, not at all. I'm here to support you guys. Glad we got the 4th poll up. You can hear my voice. That 4th poll is live on everyone's screen. Go ahead and cast your votes now. If you missed the poll today for any reason, be sure to vote here and now. We'll leave this poll open for another 10 seconds. Go ahead and vote now. We can get right back into the content. All right, I'll be shutting down this 4th poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the last 10 minutes are all yours.
Great, awesome. Well, we'll hopefully should be able to, we'll roll right into the summary here. And I know there's a couple more questions here I can answer at the end. But so here in summary, what we really just want to, continue to add as much value as we can as that trusted advisor to those small businesses that can't afford any in-house support, right? You guys are able to be that person. There's a number of different ways that we can do that, but ultimately we're going to look to add more revenue per client. And there's we'll detail kind of what that looks like down below, like we've talked about. But that's the driver here for the firm, right? We can do this, and quite often it might result in some monthly fees, of which the client is easy and willing to swallow. Those higher margins we talked about within there. And more of that consistent monthly revenue for you guys, which of course is better for your own cash flow within that. And along with that, at the beginning, being indispensable, right? Like you guys have a lot of expertise that you're able to share from a number of different areas. This only continues to create that stickier client. As that looks like down, you guys can see those kind of 3 steps from the ongoing tax planning, the cash flow forecasting, and then the outsourced controller services at the end, which we went through. And how that all ties in from a tech standpoint is utilizing visual tools for cash planning tools for your controller services, using someone like minimum Helm from that side, but of course from an AP, which is a large component of what actually needs to happen on a day-to-day or weekly or monthly basis, use a tool like Veem. We're able to integrate everything together and really create a standard process, not only for you and your staff internally to create more revenue, but add a lot of value as well for your clients and ease of mind, and hopefully add a couple more bells and whistles either on their AP or ultimately as well on their AR processes, which has been a lot of successful for a lot of different people. So I'll kind of shut up on that side. We can move into questions, as I know there's been a couple in here. Was there anything else you wanted to add on that, Kelvin, or can we jump into questions?
No, I think that was a great summary.
Awesome. Great. So we do have one in here from Sally. Does this work with foreign currency and foreign currency translation? Yeah. So I'm assuming we're talking about pushing information, let's say, back into QBO as an example. So Veem in particular does work with a multi-currency that has turned on. So as long as that's, if we're talking from the integration standpoint, let's say with QuickBooks Online, as long as multi-currency is turned on as a feature within QBO, we will actually push the exact exchange rate from Veem into QuickBooks Online. So we're giving correct information, because I know the QBO rates are never correct on that side. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm pretty sure, and Kelvin, if you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm pretty sure the same thing works with Helm, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, awesome, perfect. Yeah, we answered David's question. Is Veem US or Canadian based? So Veem in particular, we are US based. Our headquarters is out of San Francisco, but we do have teams, a number of different countries across the globe. I'm actually based as well out of Ottawa, Canada. Probably a number of you have been able to tell the Canadian accent. We've got the Canadian guys on here, me and Kelvin, but we do have a couple other teams internationally as well. I think there is a question in here for you, Kelvin. Does Helm have any plans to connect with QB desktop and or Excel imports integrations?
Yeah, 100%. It's a great question. We leverage the APIs to the biggest extent that we can, and we're focusing on integrating with cloud tools. So QB desktop is unfortunately not on our radar, but we have had a ton of requests for Excel imports. So that one is definitely on our roadmap. We don't integrate with Excel yet, or at least have an import function, I should say. But it is a heavily requested feature, so it's definitely on our radar. And I also see another question there about looking for an alternative to Fathom. I think that's a good question in terms of what you're using Fathom for and what your requirements are. So, my point there would be is if you're looking for, again, that longer term strategic forecasting tool, a tool like Helm isn't really geared for that. It is geared for more controllership type services the next 0 to 12 months. So it won't have as many drivers as, say, like a Giraffe or a Spotlight reporting would, but it is much more nimble and much more visual and speedy in terms of calculating short-term cash flow forecasting, which is a much more dynamic space. So we needed to gear it that way appropriately. So it's my long-winded way of saying it really depends on what you're using Fathom HQ for. And so if you want to reach out to me directly, be more than happy to dialogue about that further offline.
Great. And I think we do have one other Helm question as well in there, Kelvin.
Yeah, so the question is offer an outsourced controller accelerator or cash advisory accelerator. So I'm not 100% sure on the question there. So Helm itself is the software package. We do have professional education support programs. One is a do-it-yourself self-paced program, and the other one is more of active coaching. And in each of those sessions, they will teach you how to build outsourced controllership functions within your firm. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Alicia, but if you want to resend it or again, reach out to me offline, I'd be more than happy to talk about it further.
Great. And then just maybe one of the last great questions, where do I buy the t-shirt? Well, you know, Harry, we don't have them for sale here yet. I know we might have a couple here in the back, so I can dial in with our team and see if there's another shipment headed out to some folks. But I'll keep you on our short list for either prize giveaways or whatnot on that side. But and also let you know if we start selling them. But I don't know if that's in the works yet. Awesome, I think that might be everything for the questions. So Kelvin, I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming out and talking about this, as I know this is a big topic that lots of people want to know a little bit more about. So I really appreciate it. For everyone that's interested, we'll reach out here shortly. And for the rest of you, again, really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedules in a hectic season, which applies to the t-shirt. And we'll pass this over to Jasmine here.
Awesome. Well, first I want to start off by saying thank you, Kelvin. Thank you, Tyler, for sharing all of your insights and expertise, all these amazing tools. Thank you to our attendees for their questions, all of which will be shared with our panel in a full report. Now, with that, we have come to the conclusion of today's webinar. We here at CPA Academy will go ahead and process your credit later today. An archive recording of this webinar, the handout, your evaluation, and your CPE credit will be in your CPA Academy account within 24 hours. For now, we did also email that evaluation, so take a look at your email inbox, fill that out, and let us know how we did today. Please check the schedule on our website for additional information, and we're hoping to see you all very soon on a future webinar. Have a great day, everyone.